Hello everybody, my name is Helen, and today we're gonna talk about the stories that I ate in the month of May. I'm a little late filming this, but here we go. This month I read 5 books. I watched 5 movies. 2 of them were actually movies, 3 of them were YouTube musicals, and I watched 3 TV shows. And I played 2 games. The first book that I read in the month of May was Beds Are for Flowers by R.K. Gold. This was the group book for Sailormoonathon. It follows 2 young boys. There's Reapers. It's been a hot minute since I read it, and I read it in a day, so the details are a little foggy. Plus, if I'm being honest, I was not the biggest fan of it, which was disappointing because Reapers is a buzzword for me. Like, I love Grim Reaper stories, so I really wanted to like it, but I did not. On Goodreads, I gave it 3 stars, but honestly it was probably more of like a 2-star book. The first movie that I watched in the month of May was Whisper of the Heart, and this is a Studio Ghibli Hayao Miyazaki movie. It's one of my favorites. It follows a girl named Shizuku, and she desperately wants to be a writer, and she meets this boy named Seiji who really wants to be a violin maker, and the 2 of them take a year off from studying to each follow their dreams, and it's such a wonderful little story, and my little writer heart loves it so much. Obviously, give it 5 out of 5 stars. The second book that I read was Flame in the Mist by Renee Ahdieh, and for Sailormoonathon I read this for the Mars prompt, which was read a book that incorporates fire in any way. Flame, fire. This is a story that is steeped in like Japanese history and mythos, and parts of it were fascinating. In particular, this follows samurai, and it is Mulan influenced, but it's not a retelling. It follows a girl who is on her way to be married off to the Emperor's son, and on her way there, her caravan is destroyed by the Black Clan, and she disguises herself as a boy to infiltrate their ranks. I was super into this for the first 100 pages, and then it kind of fell apart for me. Again, I loved the Japanese-inspired mythos, I loved all the samurai-type stuff, but there are some things that just don't really get developed in this that I wanted to be developed. Like, it mentions on the inside flap that our main character is a skilled alchemist, and we don't really see that. I think she creates a smoke bomb. That's it. And it doesn't happen until the last quarter of the book. And also the romance in here I was not a big fan of, but I don't think I'll be picking up the sequel anytime soon. I ended up giving this 2 out of 5 stars. The next movie that I watched was Dumbo, the new live action / CGI movie, and I was pleasantly surprised by this. The first half hour of this movie is incredibly difficult to watch. The way the animals are being treated is horrible and just heart-wrenching, but the kids in this movie are a highlight. The way that they care for Dumbo is just astounding, and once they move away from their circus and into Michael Keaton's Weird Wonderland, the movie takes on just an entirely different tone, and it becomes so much lighter and such a good story about not abusing animals in a circus setting. I ended up really enjoying it. I would probably give it 3.75 to 4 stars. And the first game that I played in May, again, this isn't a game I played to completion, but it was my first real foray into it, and that was League of Legends. I have already stopped playing this game because the one champion that I like to play, people don't like to play with her, because I like to play Yumi. She's a little magical cat, and she's support, and I love her. The community's toxic as fuck anyway. I had a really fun week of playing this game with some friends, and the games that I've played that were against bots were really fun, especially because the other people playing were just kind of there to grind and level up. They weren't there for the competitive aspect of it, which was really nice. So I enjoy that part of the game, but once you get into ranked matches, I'm not a fan. The next book that I read was The Chalk Man by CJ Tudor, and I used this for Sailor Mercury prompt, I think it was, which was to read a book that challenges you, and this is a book that's very outside of my usual comfort zone. I don't like books that get very creepy. And even though this book lies much more heavily into the mystery side of it, I was very nervous going into it because I knew there was a murder and I get spooked very easily. But I ended up really enjoying this, and I did pick this up because of Lala from Over Books and Lala. She read this for one of her secret videos, and she ended up really liking it. And since she is kind of a mystery thriller buff, I decided to trust her opinion. I'm so glad that I did. I flew through this. It is such an interesting book. I will say I wasn't the biggest fan of the big reveal. I kind of saw it coming. It just didn't have that oh my god moment that I wanted. However, the last 2 chapters that are in here, those blew my mind. That was fantastic. Another book I think I gave 3.75 out of 5 stars. I guess I should probably mention some of the television series too. The first TV series that I was watching last month was the series Unfortunate Events. I rewatched the first season. I read the majority of these books when I was in grade 3. I think my teacher read them aloud to us, and I remember loving them. But I watched the first season when it was first put out on Netflix, and I loved it, and rewatching it, I still love it. It's so well done. It's so well written. It's so well shot. It's a beautiful show. The kids in it are amazing. Neil Patrick Harris is so good as Olaf, so I very much enjoy it. I did start season 2 as well, but I haven't finished it. I'm hoping to finish off the rest of the series maybe this month. We'll see. 4.5 out of 5 stars into the YouTube musicals that I watched this month. And the first one that I watched was The Guy Who Doesn't Like Musicals from Starkid. This is their newest release, and it's a horror comedy, and it is so good. I was so nervous watching it because a lot of my favorite cast members from the past are not in it. The only 3 members that are in it that I had really enjoyed from past shows were Jeff Blim and Lauren Lopez and Joey Richter, and all 3 of them were spectacular, but there's only a grand total of 8 or 9 people in the entire play, and all of them are spectacular. The songs are so good. The story is so fun. I loved it so much. I've rewatched it 2 or 3 times already since watching it for the first time. Go look it up. If you need convincing, I recommend either listening to What Do You Want, Paul, which is one of Jeff Blim's songs in it, and it just gives you a very good idea of what the main character is like and what the music is like. Or if you want the best musical number from it spoiled for you, go watch Show-Stopping Number. Robert Mannion is 5 out of 5 stars. I watched season 1 of Yugioh, and I am talking the 4Kids dub. I love Yugioh. This is gonna sound so bizarre as a now 24-year-old woman, but I started watching Yugioh when I was 8. I think that's how old I was when it started airing on TV. I got super hooked on it. I've been collecting cards since then. The very first cards I ever bought were Yugi's deck, and I still have my Dark Magician from that deck. I still have a couple of my cards from that deck, and I also got Pegasus's deck very early, and I have most of that as well. I now have closer to 2,000 cards, but we don't talk about that. Anyway, season 1 is such a ride because none of the rules really existed yet. Kind of a free-for-all. It's almost like watching season 1 of Yugioh and watching them duel is almost like watching a game of Dungeons and Dragons and someone just being like, I'm gonna try this completely ridiculous thing, and they roll for it. Like, it has that same kind of vibe to it, just in terms of like the insane shit that they come up with. The wild ride, theoretically it's like a 2 out of 5, but for pure nostalgia and enjoyment, it's a 5 stars. Next book that I read in May was The Fill-In Boyfriend by Casey West, and this was my very first Casey West book that I have ever read, and I loved it. This follows a girl named Gia, and her boyfriend dumps her right before prom, and her friends are under the impression that she's been lying about her boyfriend, so she finds a boy in the parking lot and convinces him to pretend to be her boyfriend for prom, and things kind of spiral from there. It was a really cute and fun book. It was very fluffy. I had so much fun reading this. I was starting to slump right before this, and it kind of helped to pull me out of it. And again, for Sailormoonathon, I used this for, I think it was Sailor Neptune, which was to read a contemporary. It was so good. I gave this like 4.5 out of 5 stars. I bought a lot more Casey West books because of this, so yes, I gave it like 4.5 out of 5 stars. Very good. Next musical that I watched was a Harry Potter musical. I have watched this several times in the past. I've listened to the soundtrack several times over. I've probably ingested this story tens of times. It is classic Starkid. It's very good. 5 out of 5. The last show that I watched was The Dragon Prince, and this is a Netflix original, sort of anime-influenced cartoon. It follows a very large world with 5 kingdoms, and they are fighting against the dragons / elves that worship the dragons. And our main characters are 2 princes from one of the 5 kingdoms and an elven assassin. And they find the egg of the dragon that the elves worship in the castle, and so they decide to take it upon themselves to bring the egg back to the dragon in the hopes of ending the war. The characters in this are great. It's such an intriguing show. I watched both seasons. Season 2 is significantly better than season 1, but the whole show is definitely worth the watch. Please give it a chance. I would give it like 4 out of 5 stars total. Last game that I played in May was Dragon Age Inquisition. Again, this is a game that I have played several times over. Well, I've played through most of it several times over. I've only beaten it once. But after beating it back in December and finding out the ending, I realized that I needed to go back and romance Solus. So I went back, completed everything to do with the romance. I'm counting it because I mean I had to play like 38 hours of the game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. 5 out of 5 stars. And the last musical that I watched last month was a Harry Potter sequel. Out of the Harry Potter trilogy, I think sequel is my least favorite just because it's so over the top, but the music in it is great. It's still very fun. It still has the same charm that the first one did. I'd probably give it like 4 out of 5 stars. Finally, the last book that I read in May was Again But Better by Christine Riccio. And I was going to do a full review for this book, but I don't know if it's still something I want to do. But I will say, okay, first of all, this book follows a girl named Shane who has been going to university for a couple of years, and she doesn't really have any friends, and she is very sad, and she decides that she is going to go study abroad to try and start again. And so she does, and she goes and she studies abroad. And it's about her adventures there, and the mistakes that she makes, and her getting to try again. Again, but better. I thought this was really fun. I was so impressed with Christine's writing. I am so proud of her. The writing is surprisingly good. I am not necessarily a huge fan of a lot of the characters. I did enjoy Shane actually more than some people seem to have, and I enjoyed Pilot to an extent. I do think there are some issues in here, but I will say that I was under the impression from the way, or from what I had heard some people say, that the main romance in here, that Shane had basically gone and begged Pilot to leave his girlfriend or like coerce him into cheating, and that's not how I read what happened, and I don't know if that's just how I understood what was being read versus how they understood it, or if I just misunderstood what they were saying when they were talking about this. But that's not the feeling that I got. That being said, I'm not okay with some of the stuff that happened in this, but I don't think it was on Shane. That being said, her obsession with Pilot is a little over the top. Christine has marketed this as like a young adult contemporary rom-com, and I would say that this is more of a new adult contemporary with a dash of magical realism. But the stuff in here that was supposed to like make me laugh didn't really make me laugh, or like I was enjoying the content but it wasn't making me laugh. So all of that being said, I had a lot of fun reading this, and I really liked it. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. Those are all the stories that I ate in the month of May. What stories did you eat this month? You should let me know in the comments down below. And have you ingested any of the stories that I mentioned in this video? If so, you should let me know your thoughts about them down below. I do respond to every comment on my videos. I absolutely love hearing from you. And I will see you soon with a new video. Bye-bye!